founder of the Cultivated Group. They work with nonprofits and profit and for-profit businesses alike on the branding and the development side. Emily, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me, Ken.
Hey, super excited about you being here. Take a minute and tell our audience a little bit about you, what you guys are doing and where you're from.
Sure. So I'm from Indiana. We're working on a lot of different projects over here at the Cultivated Group. A lot of everything that we do is social impact based. And we're all about being the change you wish to see in the world and allowing our clients to be able to do that in ways that best serve their mission, vision, and values. So we're over here working on projects in space. We're working on projects to develop new nonprofits that impact kids in other countries. I mean, based in the middle of the US, but we have a global reach and now even out of this world, which I'm really excited about. So we're doing a lot of really incredible things and would love for you all to check us out.
Awesome. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Talk to me about that. I love that when you said it to me off air just a minute ago. I'm like, yes. Talk to me about kind of developing that concept and really what does that mean for you in your business?
Sure. So it's actually been a really interesting kind of mantra to live by because I think when I initially, and I think this happens when you grow, right? I think you initially have something that takes on it just hits your heart or it hits your brain or it hits your mind and it just sticks. And that phrase to me that Mahatma Gandhi said really stuck with me because I've always just viewed my life as a vessel for impact.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always viewed my life as so much bigger than myself and able to not only throughout the clients that we have, but also through the impact that we have with other people throughout our day-to-day interactions. We have the ability to really make little tweaks in the world that provide huge changes. So that was a phrase that kind of stuck with me. And it's kind of the mantra that we've taken on with the Cultivated Group as we've continued to grow. But when it first like heart hit, it really I had a different understanding of what it meant. And what's been cool with me as I've evolved, not only as a leader, but a business owner and now a CEO and a manager, but also as a person, it's been interesting to see and feel the way that the different iterations that's hit in different ways as my heart has continued to expand and my brain and capacity has continued to expand. That phrase also has. So that's been really interesting. But as far as living that out, what we found is that it's all about alignment of your actions to your value, to your mission.
Love it.
And making sure that you are really leaning into just even turning the dial 1 degree better every single day and having intentional action to move and propel yourself and your entities forward.
I love it. One of the things we talk a lot about, so you don't know this, but I spent about half the past 25 years in full-time vocational ministry, planning churches and pastoring churches. So I know a lot about the nonprofit space when it comes to the 501c3 side on the church stuff. For us at Grow Stack Drive and for Joslin Coaching, I do a lot of one-on-one business coaching. So my probably favorite guys over the past 15 years are Simon Sinek and Patrick Lencioni, two of my faves. So the core value side, when you say getting in alignment, aligning our values to our mission, huge to me. Like you're speaking my love language right there. Talk to our audience a little about the importance of aligning your core values with the mission and exactly for those of us that talk that language all the time, kind of put cookies on the bottom shelf for our audience and tell them exactly what that means and the importance of doing that.
So let's break it down in a way that is more real life rather than business. So the way I love food, and I think we all love food. So the way that I like to think about core values and mission are if you're trying to transform any physical aspect of your body or fuel your body or mind differently based on what you choose to put in, meaning your diet. So we all know that there are different formulas, none of which are necessarily, because our bodies are all different, as are our businesses, none of which are going to be A plus B equals C with the intended outcome being 100% exact all the time. And it's the same thing with business. But we do know that there are better things that we can put on our bodies that will be more in line with the intended goal. If we want to lose 15 pounds, we know we're probably going to eat more fruits, veggies, whole foods than we are donuts. It's just kind of common sense, but it's the same thing with business. There are ways that we can lean down and really simplify what we're doing so we get rid of all the distractions. It's kind of like when you go to the grocery store and you only go to certain aisles because you're only shopping at certain aisles. That's what we hope to do throughout living out our mission, vision, and values, really getting clear on what the intended outcome is and bridging the gap based on our daily actions from point A to point B so that we can simplify it and not be so overwhelmed with all the options. Because even if you are mission aligned, a different business coach is going to tell you a different method of operation as far as achieving your goals. But at the end of the day, if you're creating an organization that's truly led by the impact that you as the leader wish to see in the world and the way that you are connecting the dots, it requires you to get very intentional about what those things are and very quiet. And I think a lot of times we can get really distracted, not only by what other people say and think, but also how other people have operated in the past. And modeling will only get you so far. So that was a little bit of a roundabout way of really kind of giving you those lower end cookies.
Yeah,
but
I
it's
love it.
really about being intentional again about what you're putting in that vessel.
Yeah, we've got 5 core values in my companies, and then our Grow Stack Drive Code, the online courses we have on Kajabi. We've got 5. We call them the GSD code filters: passion, focus, intentionality, teachability, and flexibility. So that third one on intentionality is super important for us. We talk about that a lot in that. We're intentional in everything that we say, everything that we content, our core values. We're super intentional on how we use those. One of the things I love, so anytime I hear CEO, business owner, consulting, and 501c3 nonprofit wrapped into one, I'm like, oh, this is a little different, because as you and I both know, I've spent several years in nonprofit world. You don't start a business to go after the money in the nonprofit world.
Right.
Talk to me about just really your heart in, hey, we don't want to just be obviously your business is for profit. We just don't want to go after and help for-profit businesses, but we also want to focus on being able to help those nonprofits as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the way that we see success, it's multidimensional. It's not just about the bottom line, and I think we're now, especially within the context of the world and in developed countries, especially, we're in a really beautiful position to be able to help those around us and to be able to be more mindful of the full picture of what success means, not only to us, but moving forward, how we're planting seeds for that future. And that's kind of the way that we do business. It doesn't have to just be about profit. In fact, we think if we're doing it just for profit, we're doing it wrong. And you talk about intentionality, but I think too, it's a really beautiful, beautiful point to bring up how if you are being intentional about those core values, and I'm going like this with my hands because that there are 5. So at the end of the day, if there are only 5, that means all of the subsidiary noise falls away because you have a North Star, you have a focal point, which can be your mission, your vision, your values, your core values, however you coin it. I think having the clarity of what that is, even if it's not exactly perfect, will automatically dissolve a lot of the distraction that is a lot of times a part of the conversation when you're not only first starting, but really getting ready to grow and scale to be bigger.
One of the things we teach our clients all the time is, and I've coined this from Patrick Lencioni from years and years and years ago, is we teach people to take core values off the wall in the hallway and literally flesh them out and live them out. Why is that so hard for people?
I don't think that the living out and the action of engaging constantly with those core values and having those as a part of culture has been a priority as much as it has been right now, especially. I mean, especially in 2020,
Right.
we're seeing a totally different landscape than we ever have within the
Right.
business world. And we're all dealing with it in different ways and we're all affected by it in different ways. And I think we're really being asked to step up. And there are things that we've been ignoring for a long time that we can no longer ignore. The time is up. So I think that's just a part of this evolution that we're realizing, especially within the US, that we don't want to just work to live. We don't want to just live to work. We want to be able to have a multidimensional life that implies more than just a paycheck and a 9 to 5 and burning the candle at both ends and all of that. But I think it's just difficult because it hasn't always been a priority, and that's not what's been interwoven to the cultures of many businesses that have been around and also many families that have been around the US and within kind of the ecosystem that's now again shifting. Why do you think?
Yeah. Wow. I don't know that we understand the power of the core value. I really don't. Ours are passion, focus, intentionality, teachability, and flexibility. And so passion's how we how we go after our goals. Focus is how we attack the day. It's being intentional on every single minute. I say this a lot. I say, we can spend money. When I spend money, I can earn more money. But when I spend time, it's gone forever. So I don't think we really understand the power of core values. It's so funny because I've met with clients before, and I know you're not interviewing me, I'm interviewing you, but I've met with clients before, and I've been on one-on-ones in boardrooms before where I've asked about a mission statement or a core value and listed top employees. Who's your top 20 employees? Give me your number one, number two. Okay, let's call number one. Hey, what's your mission statement? What's your core values? Well, I think I signed something when I first started. And I think people, I think it's two things. I think we lack the understanding of the power of core values when we live those out every single day. And that every job interview, every promotion, every demotion, every conversation we have in a one-on-one with an employee is always filtered through core values. And that when we do that, it centers everybody. And then I think the second thing is, I think there's a lot of business owners who are too lazy and don't want to pay the price to do it, because it goes into Chick-fil-A the average Chick-fil-A does $5 million a year when all the other average fast food restaurants do $1 million a year. Well, it's not rocket science to figure out why Chick-fil-A is so good. It's because their core values and their culture is second to none. The reality of it is people don't want to pay the price to have that kind of culture. They would rather do 1 million than do 5, because they understand that it's hard to pay the price to be able to get to a culture that's healthy, where people really do live out core values. And again, to borrow Pat Lencioni's thing, they're not just a slogan on the wall or, definitions on the wall walking down the hallway into the CEO's office. So you said this again just a minute ago, and I love this. You said success is multidimensional. Unpack that for me a little bit. What does that mean to you? And why do you think that's so important stepping into the future of where our country is headed?
Sure. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I know I certainly don't want to work my life away. I love what I do. And to me, it feels like play. So I could do it all the time, but I want to have a family, and I want to have friends, and I want to have deep relationships, and I want to have the energy to be able to go work out and honor my body. And I want to be able to travel the world and understand different things. And in order to do that, that requires me to not solely measure the success of my life and the success of the way that I'm showing up in every instance that I am by the revenue that we're generating on a day-to-day basis or on a quarterly or annual basis. I think sometimes, especially in business, especially with nonprofits, we don't even want to look at the bottom line, because we are so seriously, because we're so impacted part of it. Like, I've been there too. I get it.
Right.
But we want to we want to be able to measure impact, and we want to be able to have an impact in the world. But the way the system is set up right now, in order to have the impact that you want to, you have to have a profitable business. So that needs to be one dimension, but you can measure other areas of success too. It doesn't necessarily need to just be that bottom line. It can also be by the number or quality of, and it might not necessarily be as easy or low hanging fruit to measure. But if that's what's important to you, I think it's really important. And I want to just revisit too what you were saying about not wanting to take the time to earn the 5 million, or take the risk to earn the 5 million because it's more difficult or hard than 1 million. I think too, we can also perceive it as a lot more risky and a lot more scary, because it's not necessarily quote unquote guaranteed, because that's, again, not necessarily what's modeled in every circumstance. And in every situation that I've ever taken a calculated risk in a way that has been more responsible, not only for myself and my businesses, but the clients that we've had, and that triple bottom line that we're pursuing, it's paid off crazy dividends. Crazy dividends. But it required us to be able to make really tough calls and even turn away some clients who weren't aligned with our mission, vision, values. And
so hang on a minute. So you're telling me you turn clients away, revenue generating clients away, because they didn't line up with your, what we would call an ROM, which is return on mission as well. Not just return on investment, but return on mission.
Yeah. And I think that's really important, because again, if you're holding those core values as close to heart and close to actionable as you can, that will naturally happen. And that's okay. There are 7 billion people on the planet. There is no shortage of business here, especially if you found your niche. But it is about having the right conversations with the right people and knowing who is for you and who is not.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. I'm actually in the process right now of doing my first book. And one of the common themes, thank you. One of the threads came from a conversation with a mentor 20 years ago. I was actually speaking at a youth conference. 8,000 youth pastors, senior pastors, leaders. This is my first big kind of speaking engagement. They were doing a video on our youth ministry. We grew from no kids to about several hundred, and it's one of the top youth ministries in America. And I sat down with a mentor at lunch right after I spoke and they did the video, and I sat down with her and she said, Ken, she goes, I'm going to ask you a very important question. She said, do you want to be significant or do you want to be successful? Because those are two vastly different things. Yeah. And I was 30 years old then, 31 years old. And I thought, man, this is it. This is awesome. Everything's going great. And then here I sit down and Jeannie looks me in the eye and goes, do you want to be significant or do you want to be successful? And so really the whole theme and thread winding through this GSD code book is that significance is greater than success. If I set out to be significant and take other people along the journey, I will always find success. Yeah. But if I start out to be successful, I may or may not lead a life of significance. And I also may or may not leave a trail of damage behind me on the way. Yeah. Talk to me about that importance of significance and as that being one of those dimensions of success that you talked about, Emily.
I think it goes back again to this core values and kind of North Star conversation that we're having, because if those things are truly driving you, those things will naturally create significance in not only the inner, especially if they're outward focused. Focused on the healing that needs to happen inside not only yourself, but inside your business as well, that needs to happen in order for you to level up or in order for you to be able to grow and expand in the way that you're hoping to as a business owner, as a person, as a professional, but also to be able to have that impact that you want to have in the world. So if you're truly measuring pieces of your quote unquote success and or significance by the amount of times and by the level of alignment that you have in your daily actions and decisions with those core values, particularly if they're outward focused, those will naturally breed an extension of this domino effect that we can't even comprehend. I mean, a lot of what we realized we're doing very, very early on, cultivated means literally to grow and foster and nurture. So we realized we're planting seeds for the future. We may not see any of the fruits of our labor, which at the front end, that's what we knew. But now we've certainly seen some of the fruits of our labor. But we go in knowing that. We go in knowing this is a marathon. We go in knowing this is for the 7th generation, because this is not about us. And I think the pursuit of significance really leans on that, making sure that your bases are covered, but also having one eye towards the future and one eye on yourself, but also one eye on how the greater impact of what you're doing is having on this world, because our lives aren't simply about us.
Right. What would you say to business owners who are in the waiting? Like they're planning, they think they're in the right direction. They think they're living significance. They think their business is about the right things and the right core values, but they're still waiting.
Yeah.
Well, like, because you said it just a minute ago. What would you say to them?
Well, the day you plant the seed is not the day you pick the fruit, right? We all know this, but I think sometimes we can get really confused and also really impatient because if you're Rome wasn't built in a day. Like I'm saying all of these little colloquialisms, but they are so true. And we are so used to instant gratification, and we're so used to seeing the product or seeing the fulfillment of Prime within 24 hours. You know what I mean? But this is not a 24-hour game. It requires you to be ready 24 hours. It requires you to be ready to train for that marathon that you're about to, and also to sprint through different parts of that training at different times. But this is not a snap your fingers and the whole world's problems will be solved. That's not the game we're playing here. The problems are too big. The solutions are too big. If it were that easy, there are so many people who have been before us who have been smarter than both you and I, who would have figured this out already, you know? And I think the biggest thing that you can do after you plant, like look to nature. After you plant the seed, you nurture it. There is a time and a season for absolutely everything. And that's, I find myself too getting really impatient sometimes, but I realize this doesn't need to be an overnight success in order to be significant or successful. This does need to be honorable. This does need to be nurtured and groomed and grown and studied and strategically placed. But it doesn't need to be an overnight success in order to be considered successful or significant within the context of what we're doing.
I love that. I've shared in the past, literally on a Sunday morning, I've cut an apple open and pulled apple seeds out and asked people, listen, if I put these apple seeds in the ground, what's going to grow? Well, that's an easy answer. you're going to get apple, and not only an apple, but you're going to get a tree, because the DNA to be able to reproduce inside that seed is not just an apple. It's literally an orchard. It's hundreds and thousands of apples. So we've got to continually sow the right seeds, which is why core values and those things are so important. So a business owner is watching us today, and they're like, this is just revelation. They're like, oh wow, this is
I hope
where do they start? Emily, where do they start?
Start with the seeds. Get quiet, get still, figure out, pick 3, maybe 5 values that you under no circumstance will ever betray within the context of your business and within the context of your life. Really sit with that. And again, it might not be a 24-hour thing. It might be a few minutes over the course of a couple of weeks that you're really sitting with this, but get quiet and get really clear on what kind of seeds you want to be planting. And 5 seeds in an apple, 5 core values. What kind of orchards do you want to reap? What kind of fruit do you want to reap from what you're planting? And what do you want to be nurturing within the context of what you're building? And I think that's a really good place to start. Also, get quiet so that you're not completely always absorbing information from other people. I think it is so easy to get distracted by what so-and-so is doing, or how quickly they're doing, or what business they're building, or what company they're a part of, or what conglomerate is happening. It's so, like, I could go on forever, because it's so easy to get distracted when at the end of the day, you are the only person involved in your life who's going to be able to make the choices that you need in order to fulfill that mission, in order to fulfill that purpose. So get quiet on what seeds you want to plant and block out the noise. And just start, gain a little momentum, see what happens. You might not get it right on the first try, but you might on the third, which requires you making that first try.
I love it. People, a lot of people are afraid of failure, when the reality of it is we've got to experience some failure in the process, because it is what makes us grow. And it is what makes us appreciate when we get wins, when that harvest does come to fruition in our business or in our personal lives. It is what makes a difference. Success is multidimensional. We talked about significance. Talk about fulfillment, because when I talk to you, dude, I get such a overwhelming sense of Emily's living in fulfillment. Like, this is what I'm created to do. Like, I know that what I'm doing, because it comes out of you, which is probably why I got referred by a couple different people. Hey, you've got to have this girl on your podcast. You sense that high level of fulfillment. Talk about the end of the day, when you lay your head down on the pillow at the end of the day and you've lived a day of fulfillment. Talk to our audience about that.
Man, I'm just imagining what it's like. And it's not like this every night, right? But
no, it's not.
And I so appreciate you saying these things, because again, it helps me to appreciate them too. Because sometimes I think we get so caught up in our day-to-days that my life looked so different a few years ago. I was working in a more corporate philanthropic environment. I was doing fundraising, a few different pieces of the development sector. I was finishing up an MBA. My life looked very different than it now does, running a business that's completely remote from all over the world. And when I lay my head down at night, sometimes it's completely overwhelmed. Sometimes I'm kind of questioning if I'm crazy, but the majority of the time I am so overwhelmed with gratitude that I cry, because who gets to do this?
Right.
And I think you can speak the same language, because I believe that we're rewarded for the courage that we have, whether it is experience, or whether it is lessons, or whether it's business, or whether it's family. Everybody has their own way that it's going to hit them the most deeply. And I think we are shown different pieces of that beauty and different pieces of that kind of risk-reward exchange through the experiences that we're given. So for me, and living in purpose just feels like gratitude. And it is certainly something that I didn't think that I would be experiencing at the age that I am, but also I know that it's not stationary for me. This will never be done. And for it to be done is not the point. That's why our vision is so big, because I know it's going to take so much more than me, and so much more than just our business, and so much more than where we currently are. It will never be done, which is why I said it feels sometimes really overwhelming.
I answered your question just a minute ago. Yes, you are crazy. Every entrepreneur, every entrepreneur has a good dose of crazy on the inside of them. Every entrepreneur has a good dose because every entrepreneur does exactly what you're talking about. They lay their head down on the pillow at night and go, man, this is pretty awesome. What am I thinking?
Yeah.
Like, is there something wrong with me? Like what am I doing here? Yes, I know, right? Talk to me some of the things that you've learned, some of the secrets that you've learned, because I can tell you enjoy the journey.
I do. And it's taken me a long time to get to that place because I had this thing, if we want to call it this, that was perfectionism as a form of procrastination. So I got so focused on earning the A+ that sometimes I wouldn't even start the assignment, quote unquote. And this wasn't just in school. And I actually never did this in school. I did it in so many other ways, but manifested in a really beautiful lesson. If I didn't think that I could conceivably get the A+, I wouldn't even start. So I get what it's like to not want to even look at the apple to see what's either in there. I get it. But if you're trying to live a life and if you are being led to live a life that is so much bigger than yourself, the world can't wait anymore. It's time to do something with it.
Especially where our world and the division that we've got in our country right now, it's more important than ever for people to really live that life of significance. And like you said, to really find the joy in the journey, because it is such I want it now. I want it 10 minutes ago. Give me instant gratification. You said that a couple of times already. We do want those things faster and faster and faster. Emily, how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way to find out more about what you're doing?
Sure. So if you're curious, check out our website. It's called thecultivatedgroup.co. We're also on social, Instagram and Facebook at The Cultivated Group. We didn't mention this at all, but we've written a book under a pen name. It's actually a series of children's books under a pen name that's actually all about what you and I have talked about today, which is beautiful synergy. But it's called Esme the Curious Cat, written under a pen name. We have the first 3 published, but basically we're trying to activate and plant seeds for the future we want to see with principles like curiosity, core values, mission, vision for kids, so that they don't have this learning curve that we're now facing within the adult kind of realm at this point. So it's called Esme the Curious Cat. That's also available on our website called esmethecuriouscat.com, on social. If you want to check it out, it's on Amazon.
You have a copy right there with you?
I do. This is the hardcover.
Of course you do. Nice.
But yes, it's very, very, very cute. Also very incredibly intentional. And yeah, we're really excited to continue building and growing, and would love to chat with any of your audience who might be curious about what we do. Would love to connect, because that's what it's all about.
Awesome. Emily Mishler on Instagram, and that's how we got connected. My good friend Justin Breen got us connected. Man, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. And again, love your heart, love your passion, love the level and the sense of fulfillment and joy we get. And I love what you said just a minute ago about it took me a while to learn to enjoy the journey. It took me a while to learn it. Let me ask you one more question.
Yeah.
What were 1 or 2 of the things, like the aha moments you had when you went from entrepreneur work, head down, grind to, I need to enjoy what's going on. Like what were a couple of those things?
Well, again, if you look at nature, there's a season for everything. So if you're constantly putting seedlings under stress, they're not going to grow. If you're constantly changing the environment, if you're basically, what I've realized within my own life, if I'm trying to force something to happen that is not working, it's not the right thing, or it's not the right time. And once I learned and realized those things within the context of my own life and also within business, I was able to loosen the reins and really lean into nurturing and fulfilling and honestly things that just feel better than trying to force an outcome that's not happening anyway. So it was a series of different decisions, a series of different kind of problems and solutions that came to be, and just a beautiful synergy of, it really just was a beautiful synergy of solutions that all had the same kind of resolution, which was lean into those things, lean into nurturing, lean into serving your own business as a client, lean into things that feel good and better. And naturally, again, that noise will fall away. And you'll be left with the things that truly matter and forward movement that's in alignment with where you're trying to go.
Forward movement that's in alignment to where you want to go, because there's a lot of us that we have some movement, but it's not in the direction that we really want to go. And then we look up one day and we're there, which are why core values are so important, because it gives us the direction from point A to point B. Core values are how are we going to get from point A to point B. Emily, thank you so much for your time today. And I've met a new friend and super excited to continue our relationship. And if there's anything that we can do to add value to what you're doing, we'd love to. Emily Mishler, on Instagram, thecultivatedgroup.com or .co.
If you go to either, it'll reroute you.
Gotcha. Cultivatedgroup.com.
Yep.
You can check her out, and she'd love to have a conversation with you. And then the children's book name one more time was
Esme the Curious Cat.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Teaching your children about core values, about mission, about a vision, all of the things that are super important that, to be honest with you, we really lack to teach our kids. I mean, probably apart from business school, they're not going to learn some of those things and the importance of those things.
And you're
So,
not
Emily,
number 5.
no, yeah, you're exactly right. Emily, thank you so much for your time today, and we appreciate you. Guys, thank you for joining us today on our Growth Stack Drive podcast. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow, again at noon Eastern time. Thanks. Have a blessed day. Emily, thank you, ma'am.
Thanks so much, Ken.